Joseph was a young man. He lived a long, long time ago. He is a very important person in God's story. His father Jacob loved him very much, more than his other sons, it seemed. Jacob gave Joseph a special gift. It was a beautiful coat of many colors. This coat showed everyone Joseph was favored. It was bright and lovely, a vibrant splash against the dusty landscape. But such favor, such visible signs of being special, can sometimes stir quiet troubles in the hearts of others. Joseph's story starts here with love and a gift, but clouds were gathering on the horizon of his young life. Joseph also had dreams. These were not just ordinary night dreams forgotten by morning. They felt different, weighty, important. God sent these dreams to him like secret messages about his future. They showed glimpses of a big destiny waiting for him. In these dreams, Joseph saw his family, his own brothers, bowing down to him. He was a leader in these visions. They were not. He told his brothers about these dreams. Perhaps he was young, a little naive, not understanding how such news would land. His brothers did not like these dreams one bit. Their hearts filled with a bitter green jealousy. That jealousy was like a poisonous seed taking root deep within them. That colorful coat, a constant visible symbol of his father's extra love for him. Those grand dreams, pointing to a future where he, the younger brother, was somehow above them. These two things together worked like fuel on a fire, making his brothers very angry. Their jealousy grew stronger with each passing day, a dark shadow in their hearts. They looked at Joseph, and they didn't see a brother to cherish. They saw someone getting attention and promises they thought they deserved more. Their hearts became hard like unyielding stone. This deep, simmering resentment was a dangerous thing. It was pushing them towards a terrible decision. An act of betrayal that would change Joseph's life forever and set him on an unexpected path. Why do we still talk about Joseph today, so many centuries later? His story is ancient, yet it feels incredibly new and relevant to our lives. It's a story filled with a stubborn, unshakable hope. It teaches us to keep believing, to keep trusting, even when life is truly unfair and makes no sense. Joseph shows us that God's light can pierce through and shine even in the darkest, deepest pit of despair. Our tough times, our heartbreaks, our unfair circumstances, they don't have to be the end of our story. They don't define who we are or limit what God can do in and through us. Joseph's journey is like a well-drawn map. It can guide us when we face our own big problems, our own personal giants. He reminds us that God is always working, often behind the scenes, for our good. The day came when his brothers' simmering jealousy finally boiled over into action. They saw their chance, far from their father's protective eyes out in the fields. They plotted against young Joseph, their own blood. They grabbed him roughly. With cruel hands, they ripped off his beautiful, colorful coat, the symbol of his dreams and his father's affection. Then they threw him into an empty well, a dark, dry pit in the ground. Imagine his terror, his utter confusion, the shock of such violence, betrayed by his own flesh and blood, the ones who should have protected him. He was alone, terribly scared, his bright dreams seemingly shattered into a million pieces. Yet, even in that terrifying darkness, a tiny, resilient spark of faith flickered within his young heart. He didn't understand why this was happening, but he wouldn't completely let go of God. But the pit was not the end of their cruelty. It was only the beginning of his ordeal. His brothers, after some debate, pulled him out of the dusty hole. They did this not out of mercy, but for profit. They sold him to a group of passing traders, like he was a mere animal or a piece of property. These traders were on their way to Egypt, a strange and powerful foreign land. Joseph was now a slave, bound and helpless. He was torn away from his grieving father, his familiar home, everything he had ever known and loved. He had lost his freedom, his special coat, his very identity. It would have been so easy, so understandable for his heart to fill with consuming anger and bitter hatred. But Joseph made a different choice. He chose to cling to trust in God, even when no good seemed possible, even when his world had turned upside down. In the bustling foreign land of Egypt, Joseph was bought by a man named Potiphar. Potiphar was not just anyone. He was a captain of Pharaoh's guard, an important and influential official. Joseph was now a slave in this powerful Egyptian's household. Life was still incredibly hard. a stark contrast to his favored upbringing. He was someone else's property, subject to their whims. He had no rights, no voice. But Joseph did not waste his precious time or energy feeling sorry for himself. He did not complain about his fate or slack off in his duties. He focused on his work, on the tasks before him. He did every single task, no matter how small or menial, to the very best of his ability. He held on to his quiet, steadfast belief that God had not abandoned him, that God was still with him, even in the strange land of Egypt. Then, just when things seemed to have found a measure of stability, disaster struck again with crushing force. Joseph was falsely accused of a terrible crime, a crime he did not commit. Potiphar's wife, spurned and vengeful, lied about him. Because of her wicked lies, Joseph, the innocent young man, was thrown into the king's prison. Imagine the despair from a favored son to a slave, and now to a common prisoner in a dark, forgotten dungeon. It felt like his life was a relentless downward spiral, each new situation more hopeless than the last. Many people would have cursed God, would have given up all faith. But Joseph's faith, though severely tested and stretched to its limit, did not break. He kept believing that God was good. He trusted that God still had a plan for his life, even if that plan was completely hidden from his eyes in the darkness of the jail. Even as a slave, a position of utter powerlessness, Joseph did not just go through the motions of his work. In Potiphar's grand house, he worked with all his heart, with diligence and focus. He was meticulously honest in every dealing, big or small. He was completely reliable, someone you could depend on without question. Potiphar, his master, watched Joseph closely. He saw this young Hebrew man's remarkable integrity. He noticed his amazing diligence, the care he put into every task. It soon became abundantly clear that everything Joseph touched seemed to succeed, to flourish. Potiphar, though a man of a different faith, shrewdly realized this wasn't just Joseph's natural skill or luck. He saw that the Lord God was with Joseph, blessing his efforts and making him prosper even in servitude. Joseph chose excellence over despair, service over self-pity. Because Joseph was so trustworthy and exceptionally capable, Potiphar began to entrust him with more and more responsibility. He recognized Joseph's outstanding character. He saw the wisdom that seemed beyond Joseph's years. Soon, Joseph wasn't just another household slave doing chores. He was promoted. He was put in charge of everything Potiphar owned, his entire household. He managed the estate, supervised all the other servants, and handled Potiphar's business affairs. Joseph brought efficiency and order, and Potiphar's wealth increased under his management. He powerfully demonstrated that even in a difficult, lowly position, you can shine brightly. You can make a real, positive difference if you choose to work with purpose and unwavering integrity. He became a blessing to that entire household. Then came the crushing blow of the prison, a place of utter despair and hopelessness for most who entered its gates. But Joseph was not most men. His spirit was different. Even within the cold, damp, oppressive walls of the king's dungeon, he did not give up. He did not allow bitterness or resentment to consume his heart and mind. Instead, he looked for ways to be useful, to contribute. He maintained his good character, his integrity, even when no one important seemed to be watching. The chief jailer, the man in charge of the prison, noticed Joseph. He saw his abilities, his responsible nature, just as Potiphar had before him. The jailer came to trust Joseph so much that he put him in charge of all the other prisoners and the daily affairs within the prison. Joseph managed things efficiently, bringing a sense of order and calm, even in that dark, forgotten place. Joseph's innate desire to help and serve didn't stop with pleasing the warden. He genuinely cared about the other prisoners too, sharing in their confinement. He listened to their stories, their troubles, their fears. One day, two of Pharaoh's former high-ranking servants, the chief cupbearer and the chief baker, were thrown into the same prison. They were greatly troubled by dreams they couldn't understand. Joseph, with God's divine help, accurately interpreted their dreams, foretelling their different fates. He used his special God-given gift not to try and bargain for his own freedom, but to serve others in their need. Even in his own deep suffering and unjust imprisonment, he showed kindness and compassion. This active, living faith This unwavering commitment to work hard and do good defined Joseph's character, no matter where he found himself. Through all those long, weary years of hardship, the trauma of the pit, the degradation of slavery, the injustice of the prison, Joseph held something precious and powerful deep within his heart. He never forgot the dreams, those special, vivid dreams God had given him as a young, innocent boy. The dreams where his family, his older brothers, even his parents bowed down to him, acknowledging his leadership. They must have seemed like a cruel joke now, so impossibly far from his grim reality. Yet they were like a secret whisper from God to his soul, a steadfast promise of a future yet to come, a destiny yet to unfold. This sacred hope fueled his spirit. It helped him to endure the pain, to keep trusting in God's unseen plan. Years passed by, each one much like the last in the confines of the prison. Then one day an event occurred that would change everything. Pharaoh, the mighty and revered king of Egypt, had two very disturbing dreams. He was deeply troubled by them, but no one in his entire kingdom could tell him what they meant. His skilled magicians, his wise men, all the learned counselors of Egypt, they were all completely stumped and fearful. That's when the royal cupbearer suddenly remembered. He remembered Joseph, the young Hebrew prisoner who had interpreted his own dream. Joseph was quickly summoned, brought out of the dark dungeon and into the dazzling light of Pharaoh's court. He stood before the most powerful man in the known world. But Joseph was remarkably humble. He told Pharaoh, "I cannot do it, but God will give Pharaoh the answer he desires." And God did indeed give the answer through Joseph. Joseph listened intently as Pharaoh recounted his troubling dreams of fat and thin cows, of healthy and blighted ears of grain. Then, with clarity and confidence that came from God, he explained their meaning. There would be 7 wonderful years of great harvests, but then 7 long years of terrible famine would follow. The hunger would be severe, threatening the entire nation. Joseph didn't stop with just the interpretation. He also gave Pharaoh incredibly wise and practical advice. Pharaoh and all his officials were utterly amazed. They saw God's spirit and profound wisdom radiating from Joseph. And so he made Joseph governor over all of Egypt, second only to Pharaoh himself. From a forgotten prison cell to the steps of the royal palace, Joseph was now the second most powerful man in all of Egypt. His childhood dreams, the ones that had caused so much trouble and pain, were now coming true in ways he could never have possibly imagined. His unwavering faith in God through every fiery trial, his consistent, diligent hard work in every circumstance. All these things, woven together by God's sovereign hand, brought him to this incredible moment. God used Joseph to save not only Egypt, but also many surrounding lands. He even saved his own family, the very brothers who had betrayed him. Joseph's remarkable life shouts a timeless message to every one of us. Trust God always, in every season. Work with all your might and integrity. Hold on to the dreams He plants within you. Your God-given destiny is waiting to be unlocked.